File 3.
About the 10th day of my fame, I went to fulfill my duty to my flag by paying my respects to the American minister. He received me with the enthusiasm proper in my case, upbraided me for being so tardy in my duty, and said that there was only one way to get his forgiveness, and that was to take the seat at his dinner party that night made vacant by the illness of one of his guests. I said I would, and we got to talking. It turned out that he and my father had been schoolmates in boyhood, Yale students together later, and always warm friends up to my father's death. So then he required me to put in at his house all the odd time I might have to spare, and I was very willing, of course. In fact, I was more than willing, I was glad. When the crash should come, he might somehow be able to save me from total destruction. I didn't know how, but he might think of a way, maybe. I couldn't venture to unbosom myself to him at this late date, a thing which I would have been quick to do in the beginning of this awful career of mine in London. No, I couldn't venture it now. I was in too deep. That is, too deep for me to be risking revelations to so new a friend, though not yet clear beyond my depth as I looked at it. Because, you see, with all my borrowing, I was carefully keeping within my means. I mean, within my salary. Of course, I couldn't know what my salary was going to be, but I had a good enough basis for an estimate in the fact that if I won the bet, I was to have choice of any situation in that rich old gentleman's gift provided I was competent, and I should certainly prove competent. I hadn't any doubt about that. And as to the bet, I wasn't worrying about that. I had always been lucky. Now, my estimate of the salary was 600 to 1,000 a year, say 600 for the first year, and so on up year by year, till I struck the upper figure by proved merit. At present I was only in debt for my first year's salary. Everybody had been trying to lend me money, but I had fought off the most of them on one pretext or another, so this indebtedness represented only £300 borrowed money. The other £300 represented my keep and my purchases. I believe my second year's salary would carry me through the rest of the month if I went on being cautious and economical, and I intended to look sharply out for that. My month ended, my employer back from his journey, I should be all right once more, for I should at once divide the 2 years' salary among my creditors by assignment and get right down to my work. It was a lovely dinner party of 14. The Duke and Duchess of Shoreditch and their daughter, the Lady Anne Grace Eleanor Celeste and so forth de Bowen, the Earl and Countess of Newgate, Viscount Cheapside, Lord and Lady Blatherskite, some untitled people of both sexes, the minister and his wife and daughter, and this daughter's visiting friend, an English girl of 22 named Portia Langham, whom I fell in love with in 2 minutes, and she with me. I could see it without glasses. There was still another guest, an American, but I am a little ahead of my story. While the people were still in the drawing-room, wetting up for dinner and coldly inspecting the latecomers, the servant announced, "Mr. Lloyd Hastings." The moment the usual civilities were over, Hastings caught sight of me and came straight with cordially outstretched hand, then stopping short when about to shake, and said with an embarrassed look, "I beg your pardon, sir. I thought I knew you." "Why, you do know me, old fellow." "No. Are you the vest-pocket monster?" "I am indeed. Don't be afraid to call me by my nickname. I'm used to it." Well, this is a surprise. Once or twice I've seen your name coupled with a nickname, but it never occurred to me that you could be the Henry Adams referred to. Why, it isn't 6 months since you were clerking for Blake Hopkins in Frisco on a salary, and sitting up nights on an extra allowance, helping me arrange and verify the Gould and Curry extension papers and statistics. The idea of your being in London and a vast millionaire and a colossal celebrity, why, it's the Arabian Nights come again. Man, I can't take it in at all, can't realize it. Give me time to settle in the whirl of my head. The fact is, Lloyd, you are no worse off than I am. I can't realize it myself. Dear me, it is stunning now, isn't it? Why, it's just 3 months today since we went to the Miners' Restaurant. No, the What Cheer. Right, it was the What Cheer. Went there at 2 in the morning and had a chop and coffee after a hard 6 hours grind after those extension papers. And I tried to persuade you to come to London with me, and offered to get leave of absence for you and pay all your expenses, and give you something over if I succeeded in making the sale. And you would not listen to me, said I wouldn't succeed, and you couldn't afford to lose the run of business and be no end of time getting the hang of things again when you got back home. And yet here you are. How odd it all is. How did you happen to come, and whatever did give you this incredible start? Oh, just an accident. It's a long story. A romance, a body may say. I'll tell you all about it, but not now. When? The end of the month. That's more than a fortnight yet. It's too much of a strain on a person's curiosity. Make it a week. I can't. You'll know why by and by. But how's the trade getting along? His cheerfulness vanished like a breath, and he said with a sigh, You were a true prophet, Hal, a true prophet. I wish I hadn't come. I don't want to talk about it. But you must. You must come and stop with me tonight when we leave here and tell me all about it. Oh, may I? Are you in earnest? And the water showed in his eyes. Yes, I want to hear the whole story, every word. I'm so grateful just to find a human interest once more, in some voice and in some eye, in me and affairs of mine, after what I've been through here. Lord, I could go down on my knees for it. He gripped my hand hard and braced up and was all right and lively after that for the dinner, which didn't come off. No, the usual thing happened. The thing that is always happening under that vicious and aggravating English system. The matter of precedence couldn't be settled, and so there was no dinner. Englishmen always eat dinner before they go out to dinner, because they know the risks they are running, and nobody ever warns the stranger. And so he walks placidly into the trap. Of course nobody was hurt this time, because we had all been to dinner, none of us being novices except Hastings, and he having been informed by the minister at the time that he invited him that in deference to the English custom he had not provided any dinner. Everybody took a lady and processed down to the dining-room, because it is usual to go through the motions, but there the dispute began. The Duke of Shoreditch wanted to take precedence and sit at the head of the table, holding that he outranked a minister who represented merely a nation and not a monarch. But I stood for my rights and refused to yield. In the gossip column I ranked all dukes not royal, and said so, and claimed precedence of this one. It couldn't be settled, of course. Struggle as we might, and did, he finally, and injudiciously, trying to play birth and antiquity, and I, seeing his conqueror, and raising him with Adam, whose direct posterity I was, as shown by my name, while he was of a collateral branch, as shown by his, and by his recent Norman origin. So we all processioned back to the drawing-room again and had a perpendicular lunch, plate of sardines and a strawberry, and you group yourself and stand up and eat it. Here the religion of precedence is not so strenuous. The two persons of highest rank chuck up a shilling, the one that wins has first go at his strawberry, and the loser gets the shilling. The next two chuck up, then the next two, and so on. After refreshment, tables were brought, and we all played cribbage, 6pence a game. The English never play any game for amusement. If they can't make something or lose something, they don't care which, they won't play. We had a lovely time. Certainly 2 of us had, Miss Langham and I. I was so bewitched with her that I couldn't count my hands if they went above a double sequence, and when I struck home I never discovered it, and started up the outside row again, and would have lost the game every time, only the girl did the same, she being in just my condition, you see. And consequently neither of us ever got out, or cared to wonder why we didn't. We only just knew we were happy, and didn't wish to know anything else, and didn't want to be interrupted. And I told her, I did indeed, told her I loved her, and she, well, she blushed till her hair turned red, but she liked it. She said she did. Oh, there was never such an evening. Every time I pegged I put on a postscript. Every time she pegged she acknowledged receipt of it, counting the hands the same. Why, I couldn't even say 2 for his heels without adding, "My, how sweet you do look." And she would say, 15-2, 15-4, 15-6, and a pair of 8, and 8-16. Do you think so? Peeping out aslant from under her lashes, you know, so sweet and cunning. Oh, it was just too. Well, I was perfectly honest and square with her. Told her I hadn't a cent in the world but just the £1,000,000 note she'd heard so much talk about. And it didn't belong to me. And that started her curiosity. And then I talked low and told her the whole history right from the start, and it nearly killed her laughing. What in the nation she could find to laugh about I couldn't see, but there it was. Every half-minute some new detail would fetch her, and I would have to stop as much as a minute and a half to give her a chance to settle down again. Why, she laughed herself lame, she did indeed. I never saw anything like it. I mean, I never saw a painful story, a sort of person's troubles and worries and fears, produce just that kind of effect before. So I loved her all the more, seeing she could be so cheerful when there wasn't anything to be cheerful about. For I might soon need that kind of wife, you know, the way things looked. Of course I told her we should have to wait a couple of years till I could catch up on my salary, but she didn't mind that, only she hoped I would be as careful as possible in the matter of expenses, and not let them run the least risk of trenching on our 3rd year's pay. Then she began to get a little worried, and wondered if we were making any mistake, and starting the salary on a higher figure for the 1st year than I would get. This was good sense, and it made me feel a little less confident than I had been feeling before. But it gave me a good business idea, and I brought it frankly out. "Portia, dear, would you mind going with me that day when I confront those old gentlemen?" She shrank a little, but said, "No, if my being with you would help hearten you, but would it be quite proper, do you think?" "No, I don't know that it would. In fact, I'm afraid it wouldn't. But you see, there's so much dependent upon it that—" "Then I'll go anyway, proper or improper," she said, with a beautiful and generous enthusiasm. "Oh, I shall be so happy to think I'm helping." "Helping, dear? Why, you'll be doing it all. You're so beautiful and lovely and so winning that with you there I can pile our salary up until I break those good old fellows, and they'll never have the heart to struggle." So you should have seen the rich blood mount, and her happy eyes shine. "You wicked flatterer! There isn't a word of truth in what you say, but still I'll go with you. Maybe it will teach you not to expect other people to look with your eyes." Were my doubts dissipated? Was my confidence restored? You may judge by this fact. Privately, I raised my salary to 1,200 the first year on the spot.